Nalini. My name is Eric Paulson from Lawyers for Liberty. I would certainly support Dr. Koa's call for IPCMC as the most important thing that we can do in order to change the rot that has existed in the system in Malaysia. As Dr. Koa has pointed out, the deaths in custody in Malaysia is astronomical. Okay, the deaths in police custody. The only stats that we have, the latest one, is 147 since the year 2000. So that was only released in P. Uttayakumar's sedition trial. The police actually initially did not want to reveal the stats, but because the judge has ordered it, they have revealed the stats. 147 deaths in custody, in police custody since 2000. Okay, out of these 147 deaths in custody, how many inquests has actually been conducted? I would venture less than 10%. Okay, and out of these inquests, how many of them, how many police officers has actually been found guilty, or at least found to be culpable of wrongdoing? Since 2000, I think none. Okay, if you recall back, okay, the only case whereby a police officer has actually been charged or found guilty by an inquest is back in 1995, Lee Guat Leong. Okay, so to those who are old enough to remember Lee Guat Leong, he's a mechanic who was arrested in Cheras on suspicion of robbery. There was a high-profile robbery in Cheras, in Maybank. There was a tunneling, and then the police was under extreme pressure to arrest suspects, and Lee Guat Leong was unfortunately arrested and beaten to death. Okay, beaten to death, and then after an inquiry, he was found. I think there was an internal inquiry. He was found. No policemen were involved, but luckily the judge, or sorry, the AG conducted an inquest, and then finally they were found. They were punished, and I think the judge was K.C. Vora, the High Court judge. On revision, 2 low-ranking police officers which were sentenced to, I think, 36 months jail. So this was 1995. So more than 15 years ago, and he was a very good judge. K.C. Vora, unfortunately, is no longer in service. But really, I think the point of this argument is that there's a rot in the system. We cannot rely on the inquest because it really depends on the AG's chamber conducting the inquest. It really depends on the magistrate conducting the inquest. Okay? To those who have been following inquests, it's a really cumbersome and very troublesome procedures. Okay? If you follow it, you will know that the AG's chamber conducting it will minimize. They will minimize, and then they will probably do a cover-up, and basically no police officers over the past 15 years have been found guilty of any wrongdoing. Okay? This is a fact. The inquest drags on for years and years and years. Okay, and finally, basically, you have an open verdict where nobody knows actually what happened and no police officer is found culpable. So therefore, what Dr. Koa is saying, IPCMC is the utmost important thing. It must be independent, of course, and it must be accountable and transparent. Okay. Here also I would like to make a point that other than deaths in custody in police station, there's also a huge issue of deaths in custody in immigration detention centers and prisons. Okay. In a civilized state, in any civilized state, you go to Sweden, Norway, Britain, any deaths in custody is a huge issue. Okay. Could be citizens, could be foreigners, could be migrants, could be refugees, or it could be a hardcore criminal. Any death in custody is a huge issue. Okay, but in Malaysia, if you're a criminal, if you're a foreigner, of course, if you're a white foreigner, then of course it's a big issue. But if you're a Burmese or you're a Bangladeshi, you're Indonesian, you're shot dead, you die in immigration center through lack of food, water that is contaminated, it's a non-issue. I mean, everybody else, these people are migrants, they're illegal. If they die, it's okay. That's the attitude that we have taken in this country. Okay, so that is huge issue, and you can just look up at the stats in Parliament. I believe it runs in the thousands. It runs in the thousands. So 147 over the past 10 years compared to police station is quite small. We're talking about thousands deaths in immigration detention centers. Okay, so the point of the whole thing is that if people die in your custody and there is no accountability, okay, there's no accountability, there's no investigation, people get away with it. People get away with it, therefore they can do it again. Okay, so that is all for now. Oh, sorry, another important point I would like to stress out is that every time we forget to mention is that inquest, other than it being a cumbersome procedures, this important point is that the magistrates conduct inquests. Okay, magistrates fall under the legal and judicial service in the structure. Okay, that means the Aegis chambers, the public prosecutors, the DPPs, and the magistrates, they come from the same pool of resources. Okay, this is very important. So what happens is, in reality, you have magistrates. 6 months ago would have been a public prosecutor. Okay, that means advising the police and prosecuting criminals. And 6 months ago, they could have handled a civil case, acting for the government, the Home Ministry, and so forth. Okay, and then 6 months later, get transferred to be a magistrate somewhere. Okay, and most magistrates, as you know, are young graduates. Okay, 1, 2, 3 years in service. Okay, and you have these magistrates. Basically, in reality, we are talking about their structures. Basically, I would say subservient to senior officers of the Aegis chambers. Can you just imagine if, let's say, a senior DPP or the head of the prosecution department appearing before a magistrate in an inquest? So this DPP would have 10, 20 years experience, and basically these magistrates previously would have been trained by this senior DPP or the Aegis in the Aegis chamber. So we have a huge problem where magistrates are not experienced enough, are not strong enough, would defer to the DPP for everything. Okay, and after 1 or 2 years in a magistrate service, he or she could be transferred back to the Aegis chambers. Okay, so if you are careerist magistrates, okay, 6 months later, 1 or 2 years later, you might become a DPP or a federal counsel. How would you behave in an inquest if a senior DPP were to say, this is how the evidence should be read? Okay, I would seriously urge all the journalists here to basically raise this issue, because time and time again, the civil society have raised this issue that there's a conflict of interest. You have magistrates who are inexperienced, who are not strong enough, who are not, who are not in a position to conduct an independent and impartial inquest. Just compare the inquest of Teo Beng Hock, where you get a magistrate, and now in the Royal Commission, where you get a federal court judge conducting the inquest. Can you see the huge difference in the way the inquests have been conducted? Questions have been asked. They have challenged the witnesses, saying that you're not helpful. Okay? And we are talking about Teo Beng Hock's case, a high-profile case. It was telecast. You have high-profile lawyers doing it in the inquest in Jalan. And even that, the magistrates, I suppose, performed reasonably well. But can you imagine in a normal inquest, in a small magistrate court somewhere where nobody actually is following the case? So it's a serious point. All right, thank you.